Story time on how I had to beat my best friend and my boyfriend's ass. Okay, so boom, me and my best friend have been friends for 8 years. Years later, when I met my boyfriend and we started dating, my best friend was always weirdly jealous. I didn't think much of it because I thought we were best friends and she would never do something like that to me, you know? Or so I thought. Well, one day me and my best friend were shopping and she got a text. She then tells me she has to go and just leaves. I didn't even have a chance to tell her bye. So I call my boyfriend and I say, hey, where are you? Then I hear the door close and a girl's voice in the background. I asked him, what was that? Who is that? And he had the audacity to say that was his mom. So I got to his house and talked to his mom and she said he wasn't there. Then his mom tells me he went to a hotel room. She told me the info and I went there. And guess what I found out? Like Part 2 on how I had to beat my best friend and my boyfriend's ass. Okay, so boom, like I said, his mom tells me he's in a hotel room and gives me the info. So I go over there. I needed to investigate. So I got there and when I approached the room, I heard moaning. My heart dropped and I immediately started knocking on the door. But I didn't say it was me. I start to get so nervous thinking about what's going on in there. Then my boyfriend answers the door with his robe on and I immediately pushed him to the side to find my best friend naked on the bed. That's when I ended up beating their asses. I was actually beating them up so bad that a random girl in the hallway had to come in and stop the fight. Y'all know how the typical boy begging to come back and the best friend hating thing? Yeah, I was good off of that. Good riddance. I'm glad I taught them a lesson. Story time on how me and my mom walked in on my sister sleeping with my stepdad. Okay, so boom. This was back in 2017. So I was 17 and my sister was 20. And my stepdad was 32. So when I was 16, my sister and I were introduced by my mom to my stepdad. And right off the bat, my sister was very flirty with him. I would always catch them doing things like my sister rubbing my stepdad's muscles and him just standing there loving it. I would try to tell my mom, but she would always tell me that they're just getting along and that they're basically father and daughter. Anyways, this day it was my birthday and me and my mom were gonna have a girls' day. So that meant that my sister and my stepdad were going to be all alone. My mom and I told them that we would be back around 10. So we go to a store to shop, but long story short, I fell and hurt my foot, so we had to go back early. As soon as we get into the house, we hear moaning. I immediately looked at my mom and told her, I told you so. As soon as I said that, my mom ran upstairs like the NBA life report. Part 2 on how me and my mom walked in on my sister sleeping with my stepdad. Okay, so boom, like I said, we came home early and immediately heard moaning. I looked at my mom and said, I told you so. As soon as I said that, my mom ran upstairs like she was a track star. She's a runner, she's a track star. Anyways, I ran after my mom and we opened the door together and we see my sister naked with my stepdad. My sister immediately started crying and my mom was literally beating my stepdad. And me, oh yeah, I was just laughing. Like, that was not shocking at all. Like, I literally saw it coming. After my mom was done beating my stepdad's ass, he was begging her for forgiveness. And y'all, she forgave him. I was so mad that I called the cops. But then the cops told me that it wasn't an emergency, so they hung up on me. So I was even more fed up. So I decided that I was going to beat my stepdad's ass, but 100 times worse than my mom did. Then I did it to my sister, and it gets worse. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how me and my mom walked in on my sister sleeping with my stepdad. Okay, so boom, like I said, I was beating my stepdad's ass and then I was beating my sister's ass. Because I was so mad that my mom literally forgave this man for sleeping with her daughter. And my sister was literally always trying to sleep with my stepdad. Like she was sick. They all were sick. So I called my biological dad and I told him everything. Then he came over and then he gave my stepdad a real ass whooping. My sister actually lost her V card to my stepdad. And y'all, she got pregnant. I didn't want anything to do with that baby and no one else in the family wanted anything to do with that baby. So my sister ended up giving the baby up for adoption. And shortly after she gave birth, she went to jail, as she should, where she belongs. And so does my stepdad. Look, y'all, not all family is good family. They could be crazy and nasty. Goodbye. Story time on how my babysitter used a teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom. My parents worked a lot and they both worked night shifts. My dad would come home first at like 11 p.m. and then my mom would usually come around 1 a.m. My parents didn't want me to be home alone for too long, so I would have a babysitter from 3 when I would get off of school till 11 when my dad came home. By the way, I'm 12 and the babysitter that we're going to be talking about is 19. So I usually stayed with my older cousin till my dad came home, but my cousin and her family moved. So my parents were forced to get me an actual babysitter. So like a week into me dealing with this new babysitter, one night I was changing and my babysitter tried to open the door, but it was locked. I told her that I was changing, but she told me that I have to leave my door unlocked just in case something happens. I only believed her because my parents had a similar rule. But eventually my babysitter was always walking into me accidentally while I changed. I was getting annoyed, so I had to think of something to stop her. Yeah, I'm running out of time. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my babysitter used a teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom, like I said, my babysitter kept accidentally walking in on me while I was changing. So to stop her, after I would get out the shower, I would literally go to her and say, hey, I'm in my room changing. I'll be right back. Please don't come in. So she had no choice but to stop accidentally seeing me. Well, that stopped her for a week, and then she got me a teddy bear. I was excited because it was a pretty big bear and it was super soft. She came in my room with me and said she got the perfect spot for the bear. And I was like, okay, cool. Y'all, she put it right on my dresser, front and center, great view to see everything. And ever since then, she never came back into my room. Y'all, the things I did in my room, like dancing with no clothes on, acting like I was Beyonce on stage, shaking my little booty with barely any clothes on. And little did I know she was downstairs watching the whole thing, cause the camera was in the teddy bear's eyes. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how my babysitter used a teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom, like I said, she gave me a teddy bear with camera eyes and put it on my dresser. I, of course, didn't notice that there was actually cameras in the eyes of the teddy bear. Well, one day my mom was cleaning my room and she asked me where did I get this bear from. And I told her that my babysitter got it for me. And my mom was like, oh, okay. For some reason, my mom was creeped out about the bear, and she ended up putting it in the washroom to clean it later. That same night, before I even got a hello, my babysitter said, why'd you move the bear? And I looked at her and said, how did you even know the bear was moved? She kind of stumbled on her words, but then she told me that my mom told her. I obviously fell for it and was like, oh yeah, she put it in the washroom to clean later. Y'all, my babysitter went to the washroom and took the bear, and she placed it back on the dresser at the same spot. And she told me to tell my mom that we washed the bear together. I really didn't care, so I was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I went about my day. This is where it gets real. Like for part 4. Part 4 on how my babysitter used a teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom, like I said, after my mom moved the teddy bear, my babysitter went in and moved it back. The next day, it was Saturday, so my mom was off. My mom came in my room and saw the teddy bear and asked me why I brought it back up. So I said, honestly, Mom, the babysitter put it back up. She was so sad that you moved it. You should have never even told her. And my mom just looked at me confused and was like, what do you mean? I didn't tell her I moved the bear. And I said, of course you did, Mom. You probably just forgot. Because before she even walked through those doors, she asked me why I moved the bear. My mom's eyes opened wide and she froze. My mom took her phone out and opened a flash and shined it into the bear's eyes. And then she screamed, oh my gosh, and then grabbed the teddy bear and ran to her room. There the camera was. My mom called the cops, and then the cops went to my babysitter's house like 15 minutes away. And my babysitter's parents, not knowing what's going on, let the cops in. Y'all, like for part 5. Part 5 on how my babysitter used a teddy bear to spy on me while I changed. Okay, so boom, like I said, my mom grabbed the teddy bear and ran to her room and called the cops. The cops went to my babysitter's house and her parents led them in. So the cops went into my babysitter's room and then confiscated the laptop. Y'all, she had videos of me and about 5 other girls that she babysat for. And she was recording all of us naked. And we're all minors. She, of course, went to jail, and my parents refused to hire anyone to babysit me anymore. They actually prefer a family member, or they just leave me home, to be honest. And my parents actually didn't tell me what happened until I got older, which I'm now 18, because they didn't want me to feel so violated, so they handled it all without me knowing, which I'm grateful for, because I probably would have had a mental breakdown if my mom really told me what happened at that very moment. So anyways, be careful who you leave alone with your kids, guys.
I have no idea how old I was. All I remember is being little enough to fit in the front infant seat of a grocery cart. That would put us in the late 1990s, early 2000s. At a Costco, I was grocery shopping with my mother. So I'm maybe 4 or 5 years old, sitting in the front basket with my Game Boy Color when she pulls up next to a fruit display in Costco and instructs me to sit tight while she checks out various prices. I wasn't a really fidgety youngster, so I said nothing. She'll be back in a few minutes. I'm so engrossed in Pokemon that I don't notice her approach until the cart starts rolling. As a child, I've always assumed she's the one driving the cart. I was wrong. I noticed her red nails out the corner of my eye after a few moments. My mother never painted her nails and never ever wore them long. Therefore, this was a problem. I raised my head. My mother's cart driver is a little older with curling black hair pulled back into a ponytail at the nape of her neck. She had tanned Italian-type complexion, thick red lips, a heavy application of eyeliner, and brown eyes, as I recall. She seemed quite frail. Her teeth were yellowed and she had a terrible smell. This isn't my mother, and so I say empathetically. She laughs, glances around and pushes the cart a little. I say it again and she looks me in the eyes and says, "Oh, sweetheart, what game are you playing?" I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact words. "I am your mother." So in the vegetables section at Costco, instead of aisles, they're more like islands, at least in ours. I can see my real mother a few screens away. I recall yelling, "Mum!" as loud as I could, and I watched her spin her head around to look at me. All the while, this lady tries to cover my mouth with her hand. I'm not sure if it's because I'm so loud that she decides it's not worth it, or if it's because she sees my mother charging from a few displays over, but this woman squeezes her palm around my little face and then leaves it. My mother rushes over to me and that woman runs away. She begins asking me a million questions all at once, so my little brain assumes that I'm going to be in trouble for using my outside voice inside because she seems so enraged, so I begin to cry. The lady is already gone and my mum reports her to the head of security by the time she calms me down. She's never found in the store, and the security camera footage shows her leaving with no one else. I'm not sure why she chose me or what it was for, but I'm just grateful my real mother scared her away and nothing came of it.
Storytime about how I befriended a sleep paralysis demon. When I was just a little kid, I started having terrible nightmares that would wake me in the middle of the night. I would reach out into the darkness, crying for help. It was always the same horrifying nightmare over and over again. It got so bad that I didn't want to go to sleep. Most nights, I would just stare out of my bedroom door. This all changed one night when a solid black figure appeared before me. He was dressed in a cloak and a flat-brimmed hat, just standing in my doorway. He had no face, he spoke no words, and he never moved an inch. He was creepy as hell, but for whatever reason, he didn't scare me. The emotion I felt from him was a deep, sorrowful loneliness, and I know he felt my fears from my nightmares. I asked him if he was lonely and scared like me. He didn't respond or move. He just stood there in silence, but I felt a sense of shock in the air. I'm not sure if many people tried to speak to him before. I ended up talking to him for hours in the dark. Before he arrived, I felt lonely and scared, but having him there gave me a sense of comfort. When I asked for his name, he didn't respond. This is when I decided we were going to be friends, and I named him Shadow. Little did I know, Shadow would stick with me and end up saving my life one day. Part 2 of how I befriended a sleep paralysis demon. When I asked Shadow to be my friend, I felt his emotions shift from surprise to happiness. That night, when I closed my eyes, for the first time, I didn't have a single nightmare. On nights when I felt his presence, I always had good dreams or no dreams at all. I talked to him in my dreams or wake up from a nightmare to his arrival. He'd pull me away from my nightmares and stand forever silent as I spoke to him until I fell into a dreamless or happy sleep. As I grew older, he would protect me from more than just nightmares. When I was bullied in school, I'd hear my bullies speaking of their horrendous nightmares the next day. When I slept at a friend's house who also had night terrors, she would sleep peacefully. She never knew why she slept so well when I was present. This has continued for 19 years. However, when I finally felt Shadow's touch, it saved my life. One night as I wandered to my boyfriend's, he followed close behind. As I approached the house, I saw a terrifying man creeping about. This person was dangerous, and as I walked closer, Shadow touched my shoulder and screamed. I felt Shadow's fear, and I heard his warning telling me to stay away. When my boyfriend saw me, he told me to never go near that man, and if he's ever around again, then I'd have to run. That man was carrying a gun that night, and Shadow protected me. Storytime about how I nearly got stabbed by my ex's sister. My ex asked me to move in with him and his sister in his hometown. She had just given birth and needed help around the house and help with her 6-month-old puppy, Marley. She never really cared for the dog and said once I moved, we could have the dog, so I moved. My boyfriend and I were the only ones who took care of Marley. We bought her food, took her out for walks and potty breaks, bathed her, everything. One day, we found out Marley could jump the fence and get out. My boyfriend and I decided to get her a new collar and tag in case she got lost. We obviously put our number on the tag since she was basically ours. The next day when we were at work, his sister was blowing up our phones. She was going ballistic about the dog tag and saying that if we didn't answer her soon, she'd abandon Marley. We rushed home as soon as we could and they got into an extremely heated argument the moment we stepped foot in the house. She was threatening and screaming at us all over a dog tag put on a dog that we solely paid for and took care of. She pulled out a baton which made my boyfriend lose it and smashed the glass bookshelf, yelling at her to knock it off and put it away. She then traded it for a very large kitchen knife and turned her focus to me. She called me vile names while she inched closer to me with the knife. She had me cornered and I was terrified. Part 2 of how I nearly got stabbed by my ex's sister. As she got closer, my boyfriend made sure to step in front of me while breaking more things and telling her off. I started videotaping and I called the cops. Once she saw that I had called the police and videotaped her, she put the knife away. However, she kept threatening us and swung on both of us. My boyfriend put her into a light headlock and held her down to get her to calm down while I screamed at him to let her go. This was all happening in front of her 4-year-old and the newborn baby. The kids were screaming and crying, the dog was scared, and I was scared. She threatened to put a hit on me for ruining her family. Luckily, their mom ended up arriving and splitting everything up. When the police came, we all got questioned separately. She was trying to get my boyfriend arrested for assaulting her since he had pinned her. Luckily, I showed them the videos and told them where she had put the weapons. With all the evidence against her, they realized that my boyfriend was just trying to protect us. Nothing came of it, but we weren't allowed to go back to the house without a police escort. We grabbed all of our belongings and moved to my parents' house, which was 5 hours away. Everyone except me got over it, but she never apologized and she gave the dog to her friend. I eventually broke up with that boyfriend because he had major anger issues and he was a cheater. I'm happy I never have to deal with them again.